the thing that had been putting me off about IVF. I was like, how will I go and do gigs if I've just done a negative pregnancy test? Or like, how will I be on TV in a panel show going, oh yeah, that politician's got bad hair. So there was all these things where I was like trying to protect my work from the emotions of, and they'd said to me in the hospital, like, when your milk comes in, you're going to feel this big sadness, and none of that happened. And I remember thinking a few days in, I don't need to sleep. And I didn't know I was manic with Albie. I was like, try not to do so many pregnancy tests, because again, it's such a waste of single-use plastic as well. It's the other thing. They're all still in my house. Like hundreds and hundreds of pregnancy tests, like just
not
discoloured.
Used ones.
Yes, used ones.
Why have you got loads of?
Because it felt superstitious to throw them away. And at some point, I will have to throw them away, or my kids are going to have to grow up in a house.
I can see an amazing documentary.
Yeah, well, like I'm a hoarder,
Sara
but
Pascoe,
only for used pregnancy tests.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Happy Mum, Happy Baby, the podcast. Today's guest is a presenter, a comedian, a podcast host, an author. Basically, she does it all. She also has 2 children. Sara Pascoe. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm all right. I'm tired, actually.
Are you?
And I know that lots of your listeners and yourself will sympathise. And actually, I was always hoping with this podcast that we would do it on a day where I wasn't going to shit on parenting, like a good day where I could be like, you know, the magical stuff. And instead, my baby was up from 2 till 4 last night.
No.
You know, and they can't tell you why.
Yeah.
And he's 14 months old today. So, like with my first, it's like, we should be past this. I said, when I went back to bed, I said to my husband, like, it's 3 years now nearly we've been doing this. We're still, like, when's the sleep through going to happen? And then my dad's come over from Australia and he arrived at 5. So we're just, we're really broken. I say we, but only I'm here to tell you, tell the tale.
You're telling it all as part of the collective.
Yeah.
We're broken.
Broken, yeah.
Is that like a rare thing?
No. Teething. You know, you just always presume it's teeth. But they
you go to all the.
I know, and the internet goes,
like,
it should only be bad for 2 or 3 days. And it's like, what? It's like 18 weeks. Yeah, just one tiny little tooth creating all this havoc. And our older boy, so he's 2 and 3/4, he still doesn't sleep through.
Right.
But what he does now is just come into our bed.
So talk me through your night. What time are you going to bed, and what where are you waking up?
So last night my husband had a gig, which is great, because usually it's me having a gig.
Yeah.
But it does mean, I mean, in an ideal world, we go to bed at 10, but we sort of had a chat in the kitchen. And, you know, those little rare moments where
you need to actually have that little bit of connection.
Hi, it's you. Yeah, and to sort of reconnect as a team and stuff. So we had a little bit of a chat, and it wasn't a major thing. And so we went to bed probably at 11. And then after 30 minutes, Theodore came in, who's our eldest. And then, at 2, I heard Albie, who's the baby. And it is the same. If he wakes up, he just won't go back to sleep, and he won't take a bottle. And obviously you just don't know what's wrong.
Yeah.
So once you've changed a nappy and given him a cuddle, and he just wants to get up. He's just sort of flinging his legs around. Yeah, like wants to explore the room, wants to poke something. He loves to press his white noise machine because it has a light that comes on. And once the lights come on, it's game over. It's game over. He's fiddling.
I think you need a new contraption.
Yeah, do you think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Ours were always, we used to have those clocks where the sun comes up to let them know it's the morning time. Then they realised that they could just press a button.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to wait.
Sun's come up now.
Yeah. What do you mean go to bed? Yeah. It's up. You told me.
Yeah, missed it. That was night time. It's gone.
Is your eldest in your bed with you then from that moment?
Yeah.
I always find it so much easier.
I think it is because at least then you sleep. But they do headbutt and kick and snore. And that thing. My husband actually really likes it, but he slept in his parents' bed. Sorry, I'm outing him. I'm outing him. But he slept in his parents' bed. I'm not going to say to what age, but I mean, it's it's 9. It's the age 9. I'm sure that's okay to say.
That's okay.
It's okay. So basically his parents, I think each sibling got replaced by the next sibling, and he was the youngest for a long chunk until they had another baby. So he had a long chunk of sleeping. So I went away to Leeds, off and on to do sewing bee. And by the time I came back, everything we'd done in terms of progress with his sleep was gone back, because he was like, I like the cuddle, you weren't here.
Aww.
Yeah. I'm feeling it, and it's like, not recovering from it. And it does flavour a lot of the other stuff. I don't know how, actually, in nature, we evolved to be like this as a species, but how does it work that the adults that are in charge are sort of brought to their knees? Surely that's dangerous. Surely then you're like dropping babies from trees and feeding them the wrong berries. Surely we should be so rested so that we can be good at this really important job, right? Surely for continuing the species. Yeah. It's bad nature.
Let's talk about you and motherhood.
Yeah.
When you were younger, did you look ahead to your future and see children?
No. I think I went through a really long evolution, from definitely not wanting to have children.
Yeah.
And first of all, it was because of ambition. I thought it was selfish. If you wanted to dedicate your life to something, you should give all of it to that thing. And children, I thought it was selfish because if you have children, you should give them a lot of yourself, everything as well. And so that was probably my first sort of incarnation of not wanting kids. And then I didn't want to have kids because I thought I'd be a bad parent. I think I went through a lot of that in my 20s, not just because of selfishness, but I think maybe my parents had me, my mum was a teenager still, my dad was in his early 20s, so they were so young, accidental pregnancy, and it wasn't a great thing for their lives as it was so hard. And having been through that, I was like, and then I was like, yeah, and then the pain ends with me, the bloodline ends here. And I thought I wasn't equipped for it. And again, I think I came back to like not really thinking a lot about. And then after my sisters had children, towards my late 30s, maybe mid-30s, maybe 36, I started to think a lot about what comes next. And when you've had a very self-based job, I did think, okay, I don't know how to continue this into my 50s and 60s. In some way, even if it wasn't going to be having my own biological children, it's what they call in psychology the generativity stage. I knew I wanted now to be a useful member of society and to families. And I thought maybe I'll run a drama group. Maybe definitely the next stage now involves thinking about other people. And I think it's much healthier for the self to be good and to share and those kind of things. But then, so my boyfriend at the time, he wasn't that keen on having children. So we sort of tried a bit half-heartedly. Yeah. And sort of like, if it happens. But he wasn't particularly keen. And I already knew then that I must have fertility issues because we weren't getting pregnant. And
really?
And then when I met my husband, so that relationship broke up. And then before we even kissed, my now husband, told me that he knew I was the person he wanted to have a family with. And he's Greek-Australian, and the Greek side is strong. And so he knew he wanted to have children always. Mm-hmm. And he put it on the table straight away.
How did you feel with that?
It was actually what I really loved about it is that it was so uncliche. Yeah. That I didn't have to be a woman in her late 30s going, oh, by the way, if we're going to have kids, we have to do it immediately. Because he, before anything, was like, just so you know, I want to have a family with you. I think we'd be good at it. And he said, they have to have my surname. and in a way, it's sort of the only thing he's ever put his foot down about. Yeah. And I sort of, it was what's hard for some people, and including myself in your 30s, is just going, will I or won't I? How hard am I going to try for this? The headspace of, should I be doing this? You know that there's positives and negatives to having kids. You know it's this massive change, and you know that you don't know what it's like until it's happening, which is really a messy head to have. So in a way, it was nice to have someone who's really definite about it. Yeah.
But then when you're already questioning your fertility, was that also like a worrying thought? You know, that kind of, this is someone that really wants that, and I don't know if I even can.
See. Well, actually, I think I still thought it was sort of fated. I did think I wanted 40 to be my cutoff. I read the Sheila Heti book. I don't know if you've read her on motherhood book. So it's a book where she's an American writer, and she's doing I Ching actually to sort of ask them if she should have children because she's approaching 40. And she talks about how how having a line in the sand, she just wanted there to become a point where you go from don't have children to didn't have children. And I thought 40, great, that's the cutoff. And I turned 40 during the lockdown. Beginning of the lockdown, and we'd been having fertility treatment, which had lots of tests. I'd found out that I had polyps that I then had removed, and so that's why I hadn't been able to conceive. And and then 40 was coming out, and my husband Steen, he just said, can we really try? And I think he was really brave to say that. And then I think we were quite brave to do it because I was so desperate to just go, no, let me be in control, and then go, we didn't. Especially because I know, not that I knew I was going to have a nice life. I really, really loved my job, and I was so grateful for my job. So I could have absolutely owned not having children. And we obviously had all the discussions about adopting and fostering and other things to do.
Yeah.
But Steen, it was really important to him to have really tried, so that he wouldn't. And I think he was right to do it. But I think it's quite hard because there were some privileges involved in terms of money, because we paid for our fertility treatment, and that isn't necessarily an option to lots of people.
Yeah.
And also because of lockdown, I'd lost 2 years of work essentially anyway. So it was the most perfect time to throw it all and risk it. Whereas the thing that had been putting me off about IVF, I was like, how will I go and do gigs if I've just done a negative pregnancy test? Full of hormones, or like, how will I be on TV in a panel show going, oh yeah, that politician's got bad hair. You know, so there was all these things where I was like trying to protect my work from the emotions of. So I think we were quite lucky with COVID, which is not, again, another privilege to say.
But how was that when you finally said, let's go for it, let's go down the IVF route and actually start trying?
Well, it actually made me feel more in control. And I talked to quite a lot of people, because this is what happens, doesn't it? You end up in support groups because people have had similar experiences to you. And I love it because I said, like, the thing you know about IVF is even if the answer is it didn't, you then get to go, I did everything, I tried so hard, I got my answer, I know. You won't have to look back and go, oh, but what could have? Or you shouldn't have to work hard at getting pregnant. But for lots of people, that is what it is. It's temperatures and health and times of the month and compromising, not drinking, not eating things, everything you can do. And if that does end up in a person, you're like, okay, we absolutely worked our asses off so that you could exist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How were you during that process? Were you scared going into it? I mean, had you read lots about it or listened to lots about it?
I didn't listen to lots about it. I think probably I should have done. I didn't do very human research. I think this might be a stand-up comedian thing. We tend to always think we're the first thing, we're the
first one to go through anything.
Yeah. So hearing about someone else's experience, like, no, I think I know. Yeah, I got it. Yeah. Have a baby. Yeah, injections. Sure. Yeah. So I wasn't very good at listening, and when I spoke about it, I don't think I did speak about it until I was pregnant. Because it felt, I definitely didn't want people feeling sorry for me on stage. I was actually quite spiky on stage. I had a persona much more of not wanting children and doing stand-up about the downsides of having children. I remember doing, Catherine Ryan had a TV show and doing stand-up at it 4 months pregnant. You know, and still at that stage, it feels so uncertain. And you don't want to confidently tell people, and then you then have to share what happens afterwards. But having a routine about how you should be able to see what kind of children you were going to have before you had decided whether to have them or not. So there should be like an advert, and it was like, this is Steve and he likes playing computer games and his favourite food is pizza. And you can be like, oh, I'm all right. I don't think the world needs another Stephen. So I remember having sort of like a protective veneer because the vulnerability of going through it. And again, you're going through a process not knowing the answer. But I remember the healthcare professionals being really, really kind. Because they see everything and they see everyone. Yeah. And they see it work as well. So I don't often think about it. That's the other thing, is that you then get through it and then you're so busy with your kids. It's only when I speak to someone who's like, in their 2-week wait or something, that you go, oh my God, that was so terrible. I remember running to a job once. You're told not to get stressed. Pregnancy in general, the whole thing, like, you're not supposed to get stressed. In Peckham, and then last leg, someone must have pulled out, so I had the last leg, and I was running for this train, I was sweating, and I remembered, oh God, I've done an embryo transfer, and then by the time I got to the train, I was in floods of tears thinking I've ruined it, because I had a Fitbit on and my heartbeat was like through the roof and I was sweating. I was like, oh God, I've ruined it, all that money, all that time.
Yeah. It's weird where our minds take us.
But I also think that's the truth with them trying for a baby in general. When you know you're trying, there's this liminal space between pregnancy and not pregnancy where you know in the midst of your cycle and being due on is so similar to being pregnant that you're going, well, I'm either pregnant or I've got my period coming. So thanks, body.
That's such a hard place to be.
And you're sort of behaving sort of pregnantly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what IVF is just sort of pregnantly all the time, because when they're doing stuff to your eggs, all of it is you have to behave like you're pregnant, which is so hard for your brain. Did you conceive all your children naturally?
Yeah, I did.
But you must have friends who've been through
fertility stuff. So many friends. And it's such a hard thing, I think, to go through in friendship groups as well, because, you're all wanting wanting children, and then for some it happens really, really quickly. For some it takes time. For some it has to go. They have to go through the IVF. We had a lot of losses within our group as well.
Yeah. And then you have like it will be loss, and then someone else's baby shower will always be like the same week and that kind of stuff.
I had my first pregnancy ended with a miscarriage, and I went to a friend's wedding the next following week, and it's that thing of kind of putting on smiles and being there and present, and no one really knowing what you've been through, and it's a very I know. I would say it's the loneliest grief. I think baby loss.
Yeah.
You know, when you've gone through that and it's not happened. Did your IVF work straight away?
It came. My first one was a loss as well, and it was really weird. I'm going to compose slightly. I know that it's okay to get upset about.
Yeah.
It was so ridiculous because we were having not got pregnant. We got pregnant as we were waiting for our first IVF round, so it felt like magic, and it felt like. And the unfortunate thing was I got really carried away with the narrative of like, we spent all this money and it was you that waiting this whole time. So I just got I was so happy to be pregnant. And then when I lost it, I felt so stupid and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then it made everything that came after very not enjoyable.
Yeah. I totally relate to that feeling stupid thing of letting your mind go, get carried away. During my first pregnancy, I literally felt like it was too easy because I had PCOS, so I was always told that it was going to be difficult. Which
they have to tell you, don't they?
Yeah. So I was on metformin, I was on Clomid, and it happened. And so then when I started, I instantly, as soon as I saw the pregnancy test, I was like, this has been too easy, actually. I was ready for all the other stuff. And then when I did lose the baby, I was like, well, of course. And, you know, but there's that
you're not going to get it too easily.
Yeah, but there's that feeling of failure, your first entry into that world that that it's ended with.
Yeah,
you know.
I think culturally we're much better. There's so much more representations of it and stories of it, but it felt previously like all you ever saw were people looking at tests and deciding what to do, and there wasn't like sometimes you don't get to decide what to do. Sometimes that decision's made for you. And yet I wouldn't have gone to a wedding or anything. Yeah. I mean, I think you're really brave for going there and just getting on with it.
I think it was so when it happened, my friend who was getting married, she had to make her favours, and she kind of, I love her for this because Tom had to go away for work, and she came over with her favours, and we literally sat there all night. She made food, we sat putting stickers on packets of seeds or whatever, and there was that thing of, I knew that someone else was there, and it was a really lovely thing to have that person there. And I think I went to the wedding not feeling 100%, you know, I wasn't, you know, and you know, you hear, I think we shared it to a couple of people, and there was someone who said, oh, you know, well, my doctor said you're not really pregnant until you're 12 weeks anyway. Or there's the whole, thank God you can get pregnant, at least you know.
People, and there's a stand-up, he's called Bobby Mayer, and he does a stand-up about something completely different, which is that he's adopted and he went to find his birth mum, and actually by the time he found her, she was dead. And people's second question was, did you find siblings? And he goes, don't you dare try and find a silver lining in my misery. And with the miscarriage, that's what... people tried to tell me reassuringly that it's so common, and like it's like if I had lost a loved one in a tsunami, you wouldn't go, but thousands died.
Yeah,
it's like that's my person, or this is my grief. So it's both things, isn't it? It affects so many people, but your one is still, if it's huge, then it's huge. It can be minimised. The other thing, I really struggle not to say this to other people now who are going through it, but some people say, you know, like, they'll go, it's like natured practices. Like you have one, it happens in lots of mammal species, the first pregnancy, and then the next time it's okay. But that's no consolation when you're still bleeding or trying to adjust to and all those dates in your diary. It was that, like, I then worked so hard, too hard through my pregnancy and early motherhood because I wouldn't have a space there. I was not going to
You didn't allow yourself that time.
I was not going to have a bit of my diary where I'm like, well, at least I can now do this.
Yeah. So after that, did you find yourself at a point where, did you think, do we need to go down the IVF route? Or do you know, did you feel like you were a bit in limbo, and how much time did you allow yourself?
None.
Right.
No, it was more, so I remember we went to go to the hospital for the scans and all that kind of stuff to find out it's definitely gone, and allowing myself a coffee on the way back, you know, now I can have some caffeine. And calling the nurses at the clinic, and they were basically like, we can treat this like a period, and then your next period we can do the IVF. So we just did it straight away. Which I don't know if I'd advise or not, but I was so aware of age. I was doing IVF in my 40s. And what I'd said, what Stina and I had talked about was like, let's try for 2 years doing IVF. And so I thought I was going to do 3 rounds a year and just absolutely just... And then, because you're working out numbers as well, like at my age, with like this, the same with the PCOS and this and if we do this amount, then this is so percentage likely to work. But actually, it's not maths. It's so arbitrary in lots of ways.
Yeah.
PCOS, if you've had a lot less ovulations, it can mean you've got quite a good egg reserve, which I did have.
Right.
So which is a benefit.
Yeah.
Of something you've always been told is negative.
Yeah. And so how did that first round of IVF go?
That's how we got Theodore. So
really?
Yeah. And so then we were just after this, I mean, I was so anxious because it had followed a miscarriage and because I'd been pregnant and lost. And so I had every single twinge. But it felt completely different, the pregnancies. Did you find that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely different.
Because then looking back, I was like, I was having a miscarriage. All those symptoms were miscarriage.
Yeah.
And then the pregnancy ones were, there's just a security about it. Like if it wants to dig in and stay there, that's what's going to do.
Did you allow yourself to lean into that pregnancy and to believe it and to,
I had therapy.
Right.
And again, it's a privilege, but I would so recommend it because I needed to talk out loud about someone who absolutely specialised in this situation.
Yeah.
Because you can't just assume you'll be able to find friends in the same place. And I couldn't visualise having a child. I'd spent so long telling myself I didn't want children, wasn't going to have children. I was then in a state where, I felt stupid for being happy about being pregnant. And then I was in a situation where I was pregnant a few weeks, early days, knowing that anything could happen, and had to have someone talk to me a lot about talking to the baby, visualise this. And she kept saying, but you are going to have a baby. And I was like, but I can't picture it, so it's not going to happen. Just can't see it. My husband wouldn't do anything in the house. It's like we would make it unlucky.
Yeah.
So we were the people a week before a baby's being born going, well, where are we going to put it then? And what should it wear?
Really?
Yeah.
Just didn't want to jinx it almost.
Yeah, jinxing it. Yeah, or almost the thing of being too lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that week before, did you allow yourself then to kind of go?
I talked to the baby. Obviously, they move a lot, and I had lots of conversations with him. And I did.
That must be such a weird thing to be growing a baby, to know that it's there, but to
keep
also
thinking. I just wanted him out.
Yeah,
I wanted him to be out, and then it was like on him if he was alive, not on me anymore. I just felt like it's just too big. Too big. And I had a C-section plan, so I knew exactly when he was coming. And that's the thing with IVF, being older, you get put down, and especially following a miscarriage, you get put down as a
high risk.
High risk. Yeah. I was going to say difficult, not because he actually was a textbook pregnancy, but he was down as a high risk, so planned C-section, and then it was just business until I hear he's alive, and then okay, now that's on you now being alive, or not on me anymore.
Well, in the C-section, did you feel like that took out another element of risk as well and uncertainty?
That's the thing, is I wanted to know that they knew his heartbeat all the time. I watched, and I'd never watched it before, I think, because I felt, but the Channel 4 programme, the One Born Every Minute, and because you see so many people having very stressful births, that's what I didn't want to be having, is the baby's in distress. I wanted baby to be absolutely calm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you do birth-wise?
I did hypnobirthing, but all three were really different.
Yeah.
One ended with an episiotomy. The other one flew out like he was expelled out of my body. And I held onto the side of the bath, the birthing pool, and I ended up having a numb finger for about a month because I'd held
cut off the blood supply in your hands.
So when the physio came around to say, how's it going? Yeah, everything's fine, but I can't feel my finger.
Yeah.
And it stayed that way. And then the third time round was just a long labour, just kind of sort of stop-starty. And I realised I forgot to breathe. So I was kind of breathing just into my chest rather than trying to,
Yeah, so subconsciously you were tense. And holding.
Yeah. So all really different.
Yeah.
But, they're here.
Yeah, exactly. You did it.
How did was there a mad dash to get things ready at home? Did you allow yourself to do that right at the end?
We painted a nursery. We got some furniture. I honestly don't think we could really believe it. I think we were so astonished when we were holding him.
Really?
Yeah, just absolutely astonished. Like,
how did you feel going to hospital and going and getting into things?
It was really lovely. I mean, going into hospital was really nice. We went private, so I mean, it's just I really wish that's what hospital was like for everybody. And it's expensive.
Yeah,
things you were going to spend money on. I mean, it was for me such an amazing experience. It's just so organised, and he was born at the exact time they said he was going to be born. You know, they said it will be about 2:00, and it was like 1:55.
Early.
Yeah, early, 5 minutes early, and they were really jolly. No one was. It was all. They were laughing. Everyone was laughing.
Yeah.
My consultant realised I had a Japanese symbol at the bottom of my spine and was making fun of me. And yeah. So that experience, and they have lovely food and things.
Yeah. Did you feel anxious?
By the time then, I just wanted him out. To be alive. That's what it was. I was anxious throughout the pregnancy. It was all just that thing you're constantly looking at survival rates if you have them now.
Yeah.
And all of those lines in the sand. If I can get them to there, and if I can get them to there, then they It was lots and lots of that. And so I think it was relief actually being there on the day and being like, oh, he'll be here later.
And also it's that thing of, you know, not. I know you're saying about once he's out, it's on him, but actually once you're in the hospital, it's almost on the professionals.
Yes, they'll have to handle this.
Yeah. So it's no longer on you and what you're doing. You're being taken care of as well.
Yes, yeah, by people who do it all the time.
Yeah. How did it feel when you saw him for the first time?
God, how did it feel? It's so odd because it's like a complete implosion of the world. Because as I said, this whole time, this was not my narrative. This was not my story. This is not who I am. And then in like split seconds, you go from don't have children, didn't have children. Honestly, I really thought it wasn't going to happen. And it's like going all the way back to the beginning, rewind, okay, so it did. And then it's like a rebranding. It's like a complete rebrand. I know, now you're Sarah, and Steen has always wanted to be a dad. I don't think it was as much of that for him, but for me it was like, whoa, okay, bang, brand, it's...
Especially if you've not allowed yourself to even go there and to think of yourself as a mum.
Yeah, all of these things, like we went for so Theodore started nursery at 15 months, and so a couple of months after that was Christmas, and they invited some parents in to stand in a circle, and I was just in floods of tears. It was like, this was never my life. This was never going to be my reality. So I'm really overwhelmed at those moments where I'm like, I can't believe I'm here.
Yeah.
Steen hates it because at nursery they call you mummy and daddy. And I really like it.
Do you?
You know, it's really cheesy, but it keeps reminding me, like, that's the thing you did. Like, oh, this is the big thing you are now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you stay in hospital for a few days?
No, just two nights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how was it when you left?
It's lovely when they're in a sling. And you think, oh, God, it's so hard, a little baby. And then you look back like, oh, my God. They sleep all the time. You watch so much telly while like breastfeeding. I actually got loads of writing done because I was sort of...
Did you?
Yeah. Sorry for snozzing. I got loads of writing done because I was sort of manic. And for the first 10 days, I was so high. I remember Steen's parents coming over from Australia and they kept going, sit down, you've had a C-section. I couldn't feel any pain. The C-section, they'd been like, you won't be able to walk for 2 weeks and that the other. It was fine. I was in Tesco's pushing a trolley the next day.
Right.
And I remember thinking, I can't tell anyone, but it's like I'm on MDMA. I was so high. And they'd said to me in the hospital, like, when your milk comes in, you're going to feel this big sadness, and none of that happened. And I remember thinking a few days in, I don't need to sleep. And I didn't know I was manic. I remember thinking, because I was reading a novel a night.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because Theodore, it's funny because both of my kids are so different about milk, but Theodore wouldn't latch. Breast milk was too slow for him, so I was pumping for him to guzzle it in a bottle. He was really, really hungry and got frustrated breastfeeding, so I was feeding him in the night and then I was having to pump to go back to bed. So I was just up for ages. And I remember thinking, I don't need to sleep. And then day 10, I crashed.
How was that crash?
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. But then I feel I would never warn anyone because I think everyone has such different experiences and some people don't have a massive hormonal crash.
like for you at day 10?
It's very illogical, isn't it? Because you're mourning, or almost, you're suicidal. You're thinking, I can't go on, no one needs me, I can't be alive anymore.
Which is such a massive difference from the high that you've just been experiencing.
And then also that you are still in charge of a baby and you're so worried about saying stuff out loud because, we're all very aware. You say certain things in front of a professional.
Yeah.
And you're worried about the ramifications and you're hoping it'll go away. And
that puts people in a really tricky position, doesn't it? Because if they... You know that, we know in a rational state now that you need to say those things, that you need to let, those...
people help you.
Yeah. But actually when you're in it, you're like, no.
And I don't think I'm particularly good at talking about things at all.
Yeah.
Or definitely not when they're happening. You think you should be able to cope. But there should be someone that you can gently say things to, or, you hope a midwife or someone who understands. Because they do ask you all those questions.
But it feels like...
they go, any suicidal ideations? Nope. Yeah.
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 And it's a really... I don't know how we've got to this place, though, because, one of the reasons that this podcast exists and why we keep going is a leading cause of death in new mums within the first year of suicide.
Yeah.
So it's not a one-off. It's not just, but when you're in it is everything, and it feels like that is truth.
Yeah.
That is your truth. That is the truth.
Also, I think that those scary feelings, I think probably my worry would have been, if you'd stopped me, I'd have gone, I'm so worried that someone thinks that means I might hurt the baby. Well, I don't have any of those feelings. It wasn't that. And or just being so scared of starting it, talking about it, and then once it's out, you can't put it back in again and go, actually, today I feel great.
Yeah. I'm thinking all what I said yesterday.
Yeah. So I think I had a bad couple of days, but just in terms of just torrential floods of tears. And it's so odd. Hormonal crying, it is your body more than your brain, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And I know that that's not necessarily everyone's experience. Because I didn't have it actually I was really ready for it with the second, after having the second baby, and it was much, much calmer.
But did you allow yourself to sleep a little bit?
Did we get any sleep? I think all I knew was that this baby bit isn't the bad sleep bit. I remember rewatching Silent Witness going, this is the easy bit, where they go back to sleep so quickly. They feed for 20 minutes and go back to sleep. Yeah. And Albie was the opposite to Theo, where he would only breastfeed and wouldn't take a bottle for 6 months. So I've had both extremes. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, also, it means at least with that one, at least with Albie, you were feeding and not then having to worry about.
Yeah, and you don't have to sterilise anything. You don't have all of the stuff to do. Yeah. But then it does mean your partner can't share the feeds with you. Yeah. But I did get to rewatch all of Silent Witness.
I mean, what's not to love?
Yeah, exactly. And it is all of the cliches about when you are doing it a second time, just knowing how quick the phases go.
Yeah. It's so quick.
And he's now in the phase that I'd say is my least favourite, which is very ambitious physically, but with none of the dexterity. That's the one. It's the head injuries. It's the going front way downstairs. And how did you manage to make that a weapon? It's in that stage now. It's my least favourite. The stubborn. And when they can't talk, they go about light switches and anything that they want to touch. Yeah.
So after those 10 days, when you had your crash, did you speak to anyone about it?
No. No.
You talked to Steen?
I think we were both a little bit scared because we didn't know what kind of parents we were going to be. It's just the most massive experiment, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You've got this hypothetical idea of what it might be like to have a family together, and then you start doing it, neither of you knowing. I think Steen was really worried about if he would love the baby enough. Yeah. If those feelings would just automatically happen. Yeah. I think he listened enough to other men to know that sometimes it doesn't, so at least he was aware. Mm-hmm. So he wasn't...
See, Tom heard that, and then that put fear in him, and I think then he was like... that almost worried him more, the fact that can happen. And then I remember us both being like a week in and just being in floods of tears with each other, just being like, well, this is us. Like, what not what have we done, but
it is what have we done, because you have destroyed the thing that existed before, which is two of you as a couple. Like it is gone, and maybe some couples find their way back to each other. The beginning bit. This person I loved and fancied most in the world, all I was doing is whispering him to shut the fuck up. But it was just existed in the dark like moles. And he'd be like, do you want to come here? Shut the fuck up. As in, like, don't wake the baby up. Like, why are you making any noise?
I've had mornings where I'm like, I can't even look at him, because if I look at him, he's going to want something, he's going to ask me to do something else. Yeah. And at the moment, I'm so at capacity. Yeah. I'm touched out. I'm at capacity in every single way. Yeah. I can't have another person needing something from me.
Yeah. They do lose, I think, because being a partner in heterosexual relationships, and this is such a big cliche, so please don't tweet me. But in so many, it has a nurturing quality. If you're a straight woman with a straight man, we can't help it. We can't help it. And it's like, she's dead now. I cannot help you.
Fend for yourself.
Yeah, so I refuse to do my husband's washing, and it's such a source of contention because it's all in the same washing basket, but he's really tall, so his clothes take up too much room, which fucks me off because when the washing basket's full, I have to put a wash on. Yeah. And it's just like, his tracksuit that he wore in bed. And I say, I will not do it. So I'm doing 3 people's washing. I will not do your washing.
Does he have his own laundry basket?
No, I just leave his, I go through and I take out little baby clothes from under his big clothes. I said, I cannot do 4 people's washing.
So what did that first year of being a mum look like? Did you find yourself sort of finding a rhythm and things lifting?
I think I did a thing which is very common.
Yep.
And I really wish women didn't do it. And I'm now the person saying, oh, just enjoy it. Like, live your life with this baby that you've wanted so much. But my diary was ridiculous because it was some stuff that was moved from COVID, and it was some stuff that I didn't want to say no to because I didn't know what it would be like to do it with a 4-month-old baby. Yeah. And now I see other people going through it, and I think it's so rubbish about our industry that we think we're so replaceable. Yeah. There's no loyalty, there's no guarantee, and that's how we earn money. Yeah. So it's not
if
like
we're not working.
We don't get maternity leave. There is nothing else. So it's your investment in now and investment in future, and it's the fact that you worked really hard to get here, and this is your passion and your joy and who you are. So I was just working full time. I did 3 documentaries with him at 4 months old, and it was so horrible. And I had to get a nanny to come with me. My husband came on the first one, and then he just went, I can't do this for you. And he was right to say it. He couldn't. Yeah. It was moving hotels. It was these 7-hour drives across Greece. It wasn't fun. And he was then alone with a baby. Uh-huh. With Albie, it was much, much better that I hadn't imposed a ridiculous diary, and I did have much more time.
How early had you gone back with Theodore?
I feel like 5 weeks, but I think I probably did a gig after 3 weeks. But gigs is different because you just leave the house for a couple of hours and you come back. Yeah. And also with stand-up comedy, and it's the most beautiful job because you are who you are. Like if you're crying, that's who you are. If you're really tired, you are. If you're mad, and I kept my coat on, that's who you are. And it's allowed. You've come to be you. It's not acting.
But is that hard though when you've got set material and now you're like, well,
you don't know. You write material for where you are.
Right.
So you don't go in there and go, so I'm single. Look at, like, Tinder's really hard. You go out and go, just had a baby 3 weeks ago. I'm really mad. I've only just stopped crying. So you get to, you very, very much reflect where you are. And
is there something quite freeing in that?
It's amazing. Yeah. I think it's amazing because it's genuine human connection with people.
And people can relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, lots of them do.
You hearing that back instantly must make you feel like... Oh.
Yeah, laughter is 2 things. One, it's saying it's okay. Mm-hmm. We're all fine. And the other one is you're talking about something human that we absolutely all relate to. And talking about having children, if it's in the right way, you're talking to everyone at once. You're talking to people who don't think they're going to have them, people who definitely don't want to have them, people who can't have them, people who've got them, people who've got old ones and a sofa. You're addressing them all at once from a point in time. Yeah. Just to sort of let them in. Yeah. Yeah. And ideally, you should make them all feel grateful that they're not you. Although it is lovely, occasionally I'll get a message at the moment when I'm sort of talking about having these 2 young ones and no sleep, I'll get a message from mum going, oh, you've made me feel so much better about how shit my life is. Just nice.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, here's something I didn't know until I had children, is how supportive mums are to other mums. Yeah. So I went to Australia and because I wanted to take Theodore to Australia to meet Steen's family, I put some gigs in Sydney. So we went when he was 13 weeks old. And all of my messages after gigs was, well done, so well done you to go out and do a show when you've got a 13-week-old baby. And I was like, oh my God, what is this club? When I got off the first flight from Australia and I unpacked my bag, that's when I cried because I had packed 2 novels and a sheet mask as if I was going to do a face mask because I was remembering what flying was. Yeah. And it was like, that's not your life anymore. No. A novel and a sheet mask.
No, but it will come back.
Yeah, maybe.
It will come back and your kids will turn to you and go, Mum, what have you got on your face? You'll be like, it's a sheet mask, darling, don't worry.
I've got a lot of catching up to do.
So talk to me about going again and having Albie. Like, at what point did you kind of go,
well, again,
did you decide time-wise?
In some ways, I wasn't very kind to myself because, again, with age, I've been so lucky. I'd had Theodore at 40. The point that was supposed to be my cut-off and not had children, I became a mum. I had this massive, healthy baby boy. Couldn't be more lucky. But we had 5 frozen embryos from that round of IVF. And again, I did this maths of like, if I'm going to do all of those embryos. So I went and had the scan and checked that I was recovering from the C-section. And it's like, if I'm going to recover from all these embryos, how many can they do a year? I was working out the maths. And how much of my life can I ruin if I'm about to get a failed pregnancy, or like a failed round. And I said to Steen, I don't want to do more eggs, so it will just be giving these embryos their chances. And that's what I was basically working out over 18 months, 2 months to recover in between. And so I started when Theo was 10 months, because that's, if I had then got pregnant, it would have been 11 months, and that was enough recovery from the C-section. And it was all about giving it the best shot so that we knew we had tried, because I didn't think it would work again.
Yeah.
And then I was such a bad mood on the day of the transfer. I'd been to see an acupuncturist, and for some reason, maybe it was even just lying down for half an hour relaxing, all this rage. Suppressed rage. And I was like, this is a terrible idea. I don't want to do it. We can't deal with the 10-month-old we've got.
Yeah.
Because he'd just started walking, which is when, the injuries and then you realise how easy it's been. This whole time you thought it was hard. They stayed where you put them.
Yeah.
That little loaf of bread stayed where you're like, oh yeah, we're exhausted. And so he just started walking. I was like, this is a terrible mistake. We can't cope with the one we've got. And Steen was like, and that's when I knew it was going to work again. It was like when I was going, we mustn't do it, we mustn't. And then, of course, went and did it. Really didn't think it was going to work.
Do you think part of you was protecting yourself from
I think
it as well?
so. I think I had to always tell myself it wouldn't. Yeah, a little bit of control, but also because you're just trying to tell yourself those things. Of course, you have to think positively, but you also feel like you have to be realistic, and you have to tell yourself your life is okay without
Well,
it.
and I think especially after a loss, right? Because
Yeah.
you almost, you want yourself, you want to protect yourself.
Yes, yeah. You don't want to get carried away.
Yeah.
And you can't assume with doing an embryo transfer that it's going to work. And I just remember how long that 2 weeks had been before. So I think the embryo transfer had been like 4 or 5 days away going. You're not supposed to test till 12 days, till the HCG, I think the hormone is, but it's high enough to show on a pregnancy test, but everyone does test earlier. Because you test to see if there's something faint there. And sometimes the reason they tell you not to is that you can have hormones in your system from the trigger shots and stuff that show up on a pregnancy test. So you get a false positive and then 2 days later it's blank. So I had a gig somewhere like Nottingham, and I did a pregnancy test on the train back, so I wasn't with Steen, and it's completely blank, and I was hugely disappointed. I was like, oh God, I hadn't realised how much I wanted this. Oh my God. But it was only day 5, and I went home to Steen, and I was saying I shouldn't have done it because this is why they tell you not to do it. And I know it doesn't mean anything, but I just did it. And then I went to the shops and got another pregnancy test.
Really?
Yeah. And then there was a very faint line on it. He couldn't see it. I was walking on the street going, it is there. And that's when I knew. I was like, it is there. And he was going, okay. I was like, it is. If you hold to the light, I can see it. It's so faint. The other one didn't have anything on it.
Yeah.
It didn't have anything on it. And then I just kept testing. I mean, that was the thing that happened, because I had a miscarriage. I did hundreds of pregnancy tests through Theodore's pregnancy. It was so stupid. And I did all those ones that tell you how many weeks you are, because I kept being so worried about the drop. Yeah. Because that's what I hated about having a miscarriage. It's like, I felt so different so quickly before I started bleeding. And it's just, that's the head fuck, because then I was waiting for that. Yeah. And then, with Albie, I was like, try not to do so many pregnancy tests, because it's such a waste of single-use plastic as well. It's the other thing. They're all still in my house. Hundreds and hundreds of pregnancy tests, just discoloured.
Used ones?
Yes, used ones.
Why have you got loads of
Because it felt superstitious to throw them away. And at some point, I will have to throw them away, or my kids are going to have to grow up in a house.
I can see an amazing documentary.
Yeah, well, I'm a hoarder,
Sara
but only for
Pascoe.
used pregnancy tests. And so, but I did loads of pregnancy tests at the beginning of Albie, and then this line got stronger and stronger and stronger. And then on day 12, you get to ring the clinic and say, I've had a positive pregnancy test. And then they basically say, we'll be the judge of that. Come in for a scan, because they have to check that everyone, that it's got a heartbeat and that it's growing. And then they of course you think you're preparing yourself for that. Yeah. A scan where they go, it's not growing, it's not attached properly or whatever. And then I was pregnant with a toddler, going, this is an absolute nightmare, which is so ungrateful. If you're in your 40s, you've had IVF that's worked twice. My mum was like, you're a medical miracle. You're a medical miracle. She went, I never thought this would work in a million years. In a million years to get pregnant twice. Yeah. I'm the luckiest woman in the world. And I kept thinking, I can't remember pregnancy being so awful last time. But then I also remember that no one was kicking me in the tits last time.
But also, you'd kind of blocked it out in some way. You weren't.
I think it's harder the
embracing it
second
the same way.
time because you know how much worse it's going to get. So when it's bad at 4 or 5 months, your backache, you're like,
this is where I am.
Yeah, this is where you are. And Theodore's really, really physical, really runs around. It always felt like, when I took him for his 1 year check, you know, that you have to go for the nurse, and she was really kind, but she was like, she went, this is A&E waiting to happen. She pointed at him, and I said, my husband went to A&E. I think he broke his arm sort of 6 times in a year, 2 till 3. So it's his genes.
Yeah.
And then she said, have you heard of a condition called ADHD? And I was like, let's have that chat down the line.
It's so funny, especially when he's one. I know. But they're just very, very active children. So it was very hard being pregnant with a toddler because you're incapacitated really, but it's still your job to keep them alive. And again, I was like, how can this work? I don't think that difference of being pregnant when you don't have any children to look after, and then being pregnant with children, not being able to have naps when you want to, not being able to just sit down, or
even like a nice bath for a little while. You're just cleaning up after them. You're bending down. Your emotions are all over the place, and now it's a toddler that you've got to control your emotions around. They're not going to understand why you're in floods of tears. Yeah, I remember him sort of slapping me once, me just crying, and him being like, "Oh God, like,
sort yourself out, woman."
You're supposed to be the safe thing." Yeah, it's really hard, isn't it?
How did you feel heading towards to Albie's arrival?
Really, really, really lucky. Yeah, really, really lucky. I think that's how we feel the majority of the time.
You're just tired.
Yeah, we're so tired, but we are so lucky.
Yeah.
We are so lucky. And again, it was a healthy pregnancy, as in the baby was very, very, just massive. And that's all you ever want to hear, is that they're big and everything's in the right place.
Yeah.
I found the scanning I felt like I was being really intrusive. But they're like, and there's his kidneys, and there's all his spine bones. And then she's like, here's his cerebellum. And I was like, should we be looking at someone else's brain? But it's creepy, isn't it? That I've seen every single little bit of my children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how is it now, having 2 boys in the house?
How is it now? Well, they're fighting, which I wasn't expecting to be so early. The violence, and everything you think is going to be nice. Shall we get some cake out the freezer? Well, we're free. I got a balloon and a bubble machine that plays a tune. Oh, now we're smashing it. Smashing it up. Even I tried to write something once, and I couldn't make it funny, but about a toddler psychology. So the toddler, the amazing thing about spending time with a toddler is the wonder they see in the world. So the first time you blow bubbles for them, and their eyes as they take in that it came from you and you did it, and they're in the air, and the massiveness of their smile. And the second thing is, how can I break it? and so then the second thing is, how can I break it? And then the third thing is, I want more of the thing I broke.
It's so true. It's so true.
It's so frustrating. And there's no point reasoning with them. Steen really tries to reason with Theodore. And I've watched too many Instagram videos of people being like, there's no point, just distract, move on.
Yeah.
You can't have a biscuit because you haven't had your dinner yet. It's like, just distract him. Dr. Martha says, don't bother, he's two.
Listen to Dr. Martha.
You keep talking to him like he's 13. He doesn't understand. He doesn't understand that the iPad's run out of battery. Just distract him and take him in the garden.
It's mindful though, isn't it? And you're learning it on the job. And I think it's amazing that there's places on Instagram that you can go to for those voices of reason, but it's also really hard to implement those bits of knowledge in the moment.
Yes, emotional regulation is probably the most important thing I've ever learned about, but yet cannot do.
Yeah.
Or then what you have is an inner monologue. But it probably does at least make you try harder to do it.
Yeah.
And occasionally, last night, bedtime was really hard actually because of the boiler breaking in the bath, and they pick up on your stress, and it was just chaos, and the baby wouldn't go down. And I said to my husband when I got back, because he was out, I wanted to text him, because that's the other thing that's sort of passive aggressive. It's like them being out and you being just telling him what an absolute shit show it is, just so that they come off stage and get a text just like, oh, that's my evening. And I didn't lose my. I was so calm with the baby. I just thought, you just come out of the bedroom for 20 minutes, let him potter around, go back in. Didn't even mutter anything under my breath. And I was so proud of myself. I was like, no, allow yourself a win. And I think that's it, with the knowing the better way to be.
Yeah, I think
is that you hate yourself so much. I hate myself so much when I lose my temper.
Yeah.
Or I
also
feel
knowing that sometimes there are going to be moments where you lose your temper.
Of course, yeah.
But there are going to be moments where it's like last night. And
and you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not allowing the times where it doesn't go according to plan to kind of build up in your head.
Yeah.
It's hard. I think if parents are really honest with themselves, the amount of parents, especially of little ones, who get down to the sofa at the end of the day and just cry over a failed bedtime, you know, whatever that is, of kind of not listening or whatever, you know, I think we all expect things to happen when we want them to happen, and it's such a hard thing to navigate. But I think if we were all really honest, there's so many of us that sit down at the end of the day or get to bed and just bawl our eyes out thinking of
it feels like such a bigger failure. Like if you said, you know, Sarah, you've had a bad gig. I do have a bad gig, and there's two kinds of bad gig. There's one where it's my fault and there's one where it's not my fault.
Yeah.
So my fault, you know, I haven't prepped enough, or I said the wrong thing, or there's other things where it's, you know, there's variables I can't control. But with either of those things, I can put them in the right filing cabinet in my brain, which is learn from it, do better next time. You know, there's comedy's not that important in the scale of the world. You know, people didn't have as nice time as maybe they'd hoped, but with parenting, I can't be flippant about it.
Yeah.
It's like Theodore said, well, you know, Mummy's shouting. And it was because I was trying to we're having something built in that, we're having a bathroom built, and I couldn't sort out the parking on the app for the guy through my phone. And he's like, Mummy's shouting. And that feels like so cataclysmic, rather than you can apologise and you're a human being, and he'll have his own bad temper one day, which is what my friend Carrie always says to me. It's like, you know, they will be flawed. So as long as you acknowledge your flaws and sorry, I scared you. But feeling that I scared a 2-year-old because I can't control my temper with an app is so horrible. And I was saying to him, but I wasn't angry with you. I'm angry with the parking.
Look, you've displayed the emotion that, you know, because I think especially things like anger, we're all so scared of anger. We see it as a bad emotion. Because
it is scary. And also, we hated our own parents shouting. I hated my parents shouting.
Absolutely. Slight game change.
Yeah.
You go on tour next year.
I do. Come see Angry Lady. Angry Lady on tour.
What version of you will get.
Yeah, venting. Touring, as I said, so I love stand-up comedy as a job, and it actually is an amazing job around being a parent because it's flexible, and most of the time, well, no one can make you do it. You put it in when you want to.
Yeah.
When I gig near London, I can do bath time and leave or bedtime and leave, so I'm with my kids all the time.
Yeah.
And then even if I'm far away now, I'll come straight home. I don't stay in a hotel, which is what I maybe used to.
Well, I guess it's not like you're doing a run of gigs either.
No,
So
I've spaced them out really nicely, so I'm there again in the morning.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect job. And my kids have. I actually think the sort of the breakdown, and I don't mean like having a breakdown, but being broken down by sleep deprivation and having children has also allowed my brain to think about a lot of things quite deeply and who I am. And I think it's made me better at my job. So I'm really lucky with my job, and that then fitting it around family life is it feels like a double win.
Have you ever tried to take the kids along with you?
Yeah.
And how was that?
When I announced my tour last year, which is or 2 years ago, which is when Theodore was a few months old and I was about to start IVF again, Catherine Ryan wrote underneath my tour announcement, "Don't do it," and because she'd had her youngest, and they were all on tour together as a family in hotel rooms, and it all sounds like a very good idea, because that sounds like living your dream. And the reality of it, at the best, the very best is after the kids are asleep, you and your partner have a mug of wine in a toilet in a hotel room.
So
and that's
true.
the best, even though technically you're like, look at us sitting on the floor. And that's the best it goes. And the worst is, car journeys, and you're thinking, why have I done this to my children? Because they just want to be around their stuff in the place where they definitely can sleep, not miss naps and traffic jams. And when a child is over it, wherever they are, and there's nothing you can do, it's like, no, we had a couple of very short plane rides with Theodore. I went to Dublin and stuff, but if the plane is delayed by an hour and you've been sitting on it, and they have that thing where they're strapped to you, that's the bits where you're like, oh, I'm so sorry I've done this to you. Yeah.
And it's that, isn't it? It's realising, who are you doing that for? Are you taking them on tour with you for them?
Yeah.
Or are you taking them on tour with you to alleviate, whatever guilt that comes with, and that pressure? Like, I feel it when I'm on tour, you know. And actually, what I like, now when I tour, if there's a half term, because my kids are all at school, they'll all come to wherever I am during that half term. We'll have a lovely time. I'll try and juggle being everything I can for them in the day, and then going off and doing a show. But
how long do you have in between? That's the thing I find really hard, is how do you switch into performance mode
I'll
when
leave
you've
the
had-
theatre earlier than I normally would.
Yeah.
Basically, just to
Yes.
give myself that time
Good.
to just decompress from whatever squabbles and
Yeah.
arguments I've had, and just
Because it does take a while, doesn't it, to unwind. We did the Edinburgh Festival together, and that was great because we were in one place for a month. So we had a house, and then also it's all amazing parks and lots of lovely stuff. So that felt like the kids weren't losing
We
out.
took
They were
them to
getting nice summer
Edinburgh.
holidays. Did you?
The kids' favourite holiday.
It's brilliant, Edinburgh
Amazing.
for children, isn't it? There's
Yeah.
and it's child friendly. All the museums had stuff, and there's a really good Peppa Pig soft play.
There we go.
Yeah, that my son was obsessed with, but also overwhelmed by it. So he wouldn't. He dreamt of it, and then it was too much when we got there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that's a lot like really wanting to have children for years and years. Yeah. It's a bit like that because like you want it and want it and want it, and then when it's happening, it's like this is too much to take in, and it's actually happening now.
I can't take it.
Yeah, that's what it's like. It's too much. It's too much. Yeah.
I listened to your book Animal, and I've got to say, after you obviously you wrote that before having kids.
Yes. Yeah.
How that there's so much knowledge and information in that, and I love it. And obviously it's delivered by you, so it's that you've got an amazing. I listened to it, and it was an amazing listen. But you came into pregnancy with so much knowledge.
Yes. Well, I think that's why I had a C-section.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that thing that you say about the World Health Organization saying that 2 million women are walking around with tears that haven't been fixed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I knew a little bit too much, and also the whole it's that thing about the information about childbirth, because in some ways health professionals try to be dismissive of some of the realities of vaginal birth because they don't want people to be stressed, because stress is so bad for childbirth.
Yeah.
So it's that thing of like, how do you have some of the information but not be scared?
Yeah.
And I think probably if I went back and wrote that book, I would write it very differently.
Really?
Yeah, I think so, because I think I was always flippant at the time. I remember putting in a phrase like that vaginal birth was like trying to drive a Range Rover off a bus, something like that. And I think now I'd be aware of women who might be pregnant reading it or not have options, because sometimes the NHS doesn't give people options lots of the time.
But you can't write something and cater for everyone.
No, you can't.
It's really
life
hard.
Involves knowing stuff and looking back and going, well, before I knew this, I didn't know it.
I always think that about autobiographies, that kind of when you say something, when you decide to share, has a massive impact on what you share and how you tell it.
Yes.
Because if you tell someone something in the moment, it's very different to 40 years on when you're looking back.
That happens with comedy, with jokes, is that you make these jokes that seem completely fine in 1997, 2002, 2014. Time changes.
Yeah.
And now if there's a permanent record, which there never used to be, stand-up would have been just a live medium.
Yeah.
And now it's that thing of like, oh, God.
Yeah, but you can't judge me now.
No, you can't.
On a joke from then.
Yeah, I was then.
Yeah.
And we were all then laughing at that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sarah, if you could write a letter on motherhood, who would it be to, and what would you say?
A letter on motherhood. If I was going to do it, I think I would write a letter to my children.
Yeah.
About, well, actually, I sort of am doing this. I have photograph books, and I'm trying to write about. My son ate an onion the other day because he was so stubborn, and it's just so great. But it's so great to take some pictures and write it up so that he will get to meet himself as a child. Because I know I don't remember me as a child. It was in the fruit bowl, so he's not allowed to climb up on the surface. So of course that's what he does all day.
Yeah.
And his dad hates it when he bites all of the fruit one by one, so that's what he does. And so we have lots of apples with one bite taken out of them, so he doesn't want any more. And there was an onion in there, and when he started to bite it, he was told not to, and so he thought it was like the apple thing.
Yeah.
And then it was like, no, you won't like it. And the more we said no, the more he's like, I'm going to eat this entire onion. As we
How much of it did he eat?
He ate quite a sizable amount of onion. Yeah, he's so stubborn. And so 2 things. I got it made as a key ring for my husband to remind him like that's the tenacity that he has in him. And also, so as I try to write up things for my sons, the thing is, I don't have a thing of like, oh, you made me a mum.
Yeah.
Or any of that. It's just like, you were so wanted. Like whatever else we do, and I'm not asking you to be grateful for it, because I don't, you don't owe us anything, but oh my God, never doubt for a second. Yeah. It's such a weird thing, because like none of it is schmaltzy or romantic. But I do think a lot of the time I go, I'm very present. I don't like it. I don't like cleaning up all the time. wiping the same surface you've just wiped. But I go,
Yeah.
I'm very here.
Yeah.
Whereas that's something, before I had children, I used to think quite a lot like, am I even taking this in?
Yeah.
Like life's just happening to me. And with work, I was always like, just get through today. Just like, today's so busy. Just get through today. Whereas now I'm more like, is it only 10 a.m?
Sarah, we end the podcast with you completing 3 sentences.
Yes.
The first one is being a mum means.
Doing more washing in the last 2 years than in my previous 40 years. More loads of washing, maybe this week, than the previous 40 years. I cannot believe how many loads of washing I now have to do.
Wait till they start school.
Don't they get a uniform? Don't they wear the same thing every day? Do you have
No,
to
but
wash
then
it
you've got to wash it every day.
every day? Oh, God.
Since having children,
Yeah. I just want to say more things about doing all the washing. So what was the first one?
Being a mum means.
Being a mum means, okay, I've done it the wrong way around. Since becoming a mum, all I've done is wash.
Okay.
Loads of washing.
Being a mum
Being
means.
a mum means, I think, reliving your own childhood
Yeah.
inside out, seeing it all again, perspective-wise,
Nice.
understanding some things really compassionately, being furious about things you didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm happy when.
I'm happy when... I'm happy a lot, actually, after all my moaning. I'm happy a lot because the stuff that makes me happy is very, very basic.
Yeah.
My son has stopped hitting the dog and they've started cuddling. Oh, my God. He sometimes says, yeah, cool, when you give him a snack. And me and Steen just burst into tears. The other day I said to him, this one's got berries in it. He was like, oh, cool. We're like, oh, my God, that's cute. Thanks, Mum. The sentence, thanks, Mum. Thanks, Mum.
Oh.
And the baby's so happy. He just grins. He just laughs. And he snorts like a pig whenever he sees Peppa Pig. And if he sees a candle, he goes, because they're obsessed with Happy Birthday. We sing Happy Birthday several times a day. Always to Theodore, he insists. And so I'll like a lovely sort of Joe Malone in the corner of the room, and there are his from the baby who wants to blow it out. Basically, it's so much joy in such mundane things while wiping and cleaning and complaining. Yeah.
Sarah, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.